Hey guys, it's Maymay. So I had an idea. So I've been making all of these slider easel cards, right? And Father's Day is coming up, and I got to thinking, how cool would it be if we could do a tie that slides up to reveal our sentiment? So that's what we did. Now, this is cool for my 5x7 card lovers, because the only way I could make this work was by doing it with 5x7. It did not work with an A2, because you need this little panel down here, and you'll see why. So at the top of the card, you see I have this little pull tab. So you pull it, and it reveals Happy Father's Day, Dad, under the tie. Isn't that cute how that does that? So today I'm going to show you how to make this 5x7 necktie easel card. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to need is your pattern. Now this is a free PDF and it's linked in the description of the video you're watching and also on the blog post with all of the measurements for you, okay? So this is your PDF, it's the tie. These little marks here are your score marks, but we'll get to those in a few minutes. But I want to tell you one thing. When you print your PDF, print it on cardstock. It's so much easier to trace on cardstock than it is copy paper. But I wanted to show you what that looks like. So there is that. Now the other pieces you're going to need, we're just going to run through this really quick. You're going to need your PDF pattern, okay? Then you're going to need to cut out a tie from that pattern, okay? So this is the tie I'm going to use today. You're also going to need your shirt. This is actually just the mat of your 5x7 card. So this will be my shirt pattern. And this is my card itself. It's not going to open. It's going to be a flat card. So that's my 5x7 card. Then this piece is going to be my slider mechanism. You know, we've made these before, the one that pulls the tie up. This is what we're going to use for that. Now, all the measurements are going to be on the blog post. The only other thing that I always forget to show is I'm going to use these little spacer strips that we've used before. They're just 1/4 of an inch pieces. So let's get started. All right, the first thing you want to do is start with your shirt and your tie. Now, here's what I would suggest. Take this pattern and trace it on your tie cardstock and go ahead and cut out your tie, okay? Then put this guy aside. Let this be the one that you trace onto the front of your card so you know you're matching the same shape. If you don't cut these exactly right and you trace this one, you could run into an issue. So all you need that one for is to get your tie shape and the right size. Now I'm going to use my cutting mat, and can you see how I am placing this same on either side in the little squares right there, or eyeball same. Then I'm going to let that help me line up my tie here at the top. And what I need to do is I need to make sure that my tie is flush at the top, and then I'm going to do some tracing. I do not need to trace this top part of the tie. I don't need that. But from this first little bend right here from the knot down, I need to trace that. Now I'm going to trace kind of heavy today so you guys can see it on camera, but you don't need to trace heavy at home. Trace lightly so you can erase it. All right, and I'm going to trace my whole tie all the way around up to the knot. I don't need the knot. See how tracing cardstock is so much easier than tracing paper? If you like this paper, by the way, it came from a dog's tail. This is from the 12x12 and this is from the 6x6. Can you believe that's from a dog's tail? It's perfect. All right, so that's what I need to cut out. And by tracing my actual pattern, I know I'll get the right shape. All right, now you're going to use your blade and your ruler. Now, if you don't want to use a blade and a ruler, you can do this with scissors. It'll just be a little more difficult. You'll have to kind of just start yourself a little hole and come in there and do it with your scissors. But this with your blade is perfect. Now, I don't like to use my metal edge. I know I'm supposed to. And yes, I have divots all up and down my ruler from not doing it. But it's just a habit for me. I like the beveled edge to trim this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down here to where my tie intersects. I'm going to line my ruler up. And I'm going to sink my blade right there. So I'm going to take my blade, put it on the point, and sink it. Whoops, and close it at the same time. When I sink the blade, what that'll do is kind of give me a stopping point for when I come back down. So it just helps my blade not to go all the way off the page. You'll feel it when you do it. See how it just kind of stopped right there? I could feel it more than you can see it or hear it. But it just kind of stops at that little mark. So you want to do that every time. It's really a good way to make sure you get a nice clean and not run off the page cut. All right, so the same thing here. So just lining this up. I'm going to come down here and sink the blade. Just make a little nick. So my blade will stop when I get there. And I'm going to place it in at the top. And remember, more passes, less pressure. You get a better cut that way. I felt that one go through. And you can check up here. I'm not quite through. I'm just going to take my little blade, sink it in there. See if I got that time. Yep, got it. Okay. And now I'm going to keep going all the way around these cuts. So there is my little tie shape cut out. Now before I do any bending or anything, I want to go ahead and erase my pencil mark. And I have to be kind of careful because I'm using pattern paper, so I'm just going to go lightly here. And your pencil mark won't be as obvious. Remember, I did mine dark so you guys could see it on camera. But when you're doing this at home, do it very lightly so you can erase it real easy. Because you're never going to cut perfectly off that pencil mark. There's no way. All the way around. And like I said, I want to do this before I do any folding, because this way I can keep it nice and flat and get any pencil marks that are on both sides of the cut. Okay. Now then, also before I do any folding, I want to glue my tie on. This is why we traced our actual tie, so I could be sure that it was going to line up really well, and that does. I only have one little spot where I'm a little bit off, but actually the more I kind of lay it there, the better it is. So I want to glue this down before I do anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and take my art glitter glue, and here I'm going to glue the whole tie down, top and all the way around. I love doing this. It reminds me of being like a fashion designer. Now, Vint says he would not wear this outfit. He says he would not wear this polka dotted shirt with this plaid tie, but I think he probably would. He says he wouldn't. Okay, so now we're all glued down, and what happens is we have this loose part of the tie, and now we can do our score marks. Let me get my score board over here, just my little one, and we're going to place this in here. Now, this is just like you do with your slider easel cards, just like it. Let me put my pen back in here before I have that issue again. This is why my glue never runs. I always keep my pen out. Okay, using your embossing tool, here's what you're going to do. You just want to score where these points are. That's your first spot. Then we're going to come to the middle and then come to where these points are. And I'll tell you the measurements in just a second. For me, the way I trimmed this, it looks like about 4 1/8 is about the closest I'm going to get to this little point right here. So I'm just going to try to get this working. Now remember, this is 2 pieces of cardstock you're going through, and that makes it more difficult. I'm trying to find it. There we go. I'm going to work it till I get there. Now here's the other thing. It does not have to be perfectly on your points. Mine went down a little low. I'll show you when I fold it here. So mine went down a tiny bit low, and that's okay, as long as you're leaving yourself room here to adhere it down, okay? And then I'm going to come up here to the top, and as close as I can get to that, I'm going to let my embossing tool find it, and there it is. So I've got the top scored now, so my tie will go back. And now I just need to split the difference between here. So between this one and this one, mine is going to be 2 1/2. Yours may feel a little different, but I'm going to get this to work into that 2 1/2 inch mark. I'm not quite there yet. It hasn't locked in. Nope. Oh, there it is. I was off a little bit. So right there is my 2 1/2 inch mark. If you need any help with that, watch this. Just take your ruler and lay it beside, and that will help you get right to that little score mark that you're trying to get to, because we're scoring in the middle of the page. We're kind of floating, and that will help. Now what you got is a mountain valley fold. It's easy. So we go this way, then we go this way, and then we go this way. So mountain valley, and you want to crease this with your bone folder. Now you're doing 2 pieces of paper, so you're going to have to kind of train it. That's okay, because you know we stacked a piece on top of here. Let's do this side as well. And don't worry if this is a little loose. You kind of need it to be, actually. You want it to be a tiny bit loose on its folds. All right, so then we come back down here, and now our tie lays flat again. Sort of. We don't care if it's got that wrinkle in it. That's kind of the point of the project. Okay, now what we need to do is work on let's put on our little strips first. I always like to do that at this point. So here's how this works. Take your little spacer strips and your glue, and you're going to run a strip down this side first of glue. Then these are 1/4 inch. And again, if you want to use foam tape, I've talked about this in my other easel cards. If you want to use foam tape here, go ahead. I just don't need that much space. I'm only sliding up 1 piece of cardstock, so I don't need a full, 1/8 of an inch or even a 1/16 of an inch. I just need a sliver of space. So that's why I do this here. So basically, I'm doing double the thickness of the cardstock I'm pulling through. So that's why I'm doing these little strips. It's also a great way to use up all your scraps. So take this one down here. And how cute are these dogs? If you had a dog lover, you'd make their shirt look that. Oh, their tie like that? That would be adorable, little puppy tie. I should have done that and put that Winnie dog right in the middle for Vince. Who knows? I may still do that. I've got 3 dads I make cards for. Actually 4 now. I have 4 dads. 5 dads, because I have a son that now is a dad. So I have 5 cards I can make for Father's Day. So somebody can get this one. All right. So now glue this one down. And you might want to use a coordinating color. I actually used white because it'll match my card base. But if you're using a black card or if you're using craft or something like that, you might want to make your strips kind of match. Then these little strips right here were some I had left over and I was hoping they would fit. I may have to trim them, but I had these just left over in my scraps. So let's see. It's a little bit long, so I do need to trim just the end here. Now I'm trimming this at the bottom and we're not trying to hold anything in. Like this is not a shaker card. So if there's a little space between there, it doesn't matter. We're really just trying to get height. So if they don't close up exactly, no big deal. All right, where these guys hang off. Oh, this is where I had those extras. This is where I had those extra strips from. So save these for your next one. All right, let's get this where I can trim it off nice and even. There we go. Okay, so there is the front of our card all done. Now there's one other thing that I'm going to suggest that you do. These points on the tie make it a little difficult to slide. So here's what I did, and you got to be brave, okay? I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to round it off. And you can round it as much or as little as you want. And remember, it doesn't look bad because this is fabric and fabric would round off. So you do this side, and then what I do is push this one through so I can hold it the same way. And then I just round off that little edge. It just helps in the slider portion, okay? So now see, it's not quite as tight right there, and we'll do better when we're sliding. Now we need to make our little piece that's gonna slide. This is the piece, and I'm gonna flip the card over and show you. This is the piece that's gonna live here, and it's even at the top. We'll need to make a pull. We'll do that in a second. I'll show you how that works. But this is the piece that's gonna live in here. It's also the piece you're gonna stamp, okay? I want you to imagine this here. I'm gonna flip this over. So the space you have to stamp in is here, because that's what's hidden in the card, all right? So this was about 1.5 inches on my first try. Let's see how much it is here. About 1.5 inches. I know that that's 1/4 inch because of my little strips I put down. So my usable space here is 1.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little piece and I'll put it onto my work surface here. And I'm going to come up 1.5 inches from the bottom. And I'm just using my cutting mat to help me do this because I'm up 1.5 inches there. Take my pencil again and lightly, and I'm going to do it lightly this time because I don't want that to show, lightly make myself 1.5 inches mark. Now I know I can stamp in here close to that line, and when we pull the tie, whatever I put in here will show. And what I put in mine was, Dad, you're the best. This comes from our stamp set called Happy Father's Day. And let me show you. No, it's called Best Dad. My bad. It's called Best Dad. It's this stamp set. And I'm using the word Dad and then you're the best there at the top. So let's stamp that together. You can put whatever you want in there. And here's my VersaFine. And just going to ink this up. And then right close to that line, pretty close, I'm going to stamp right in the center. And you want to kind of keep this sentiment, like I said, in this area because of the way it's going to show in the card. You'll see in a second, but the way it's going to show in the card, you kind of need it to be there. And before you glue this down, go ahead and erase your line. Don't smear your ink. Be careful. But go ahead and erase that line or you'll forget. It's not the end of the world if you forget. You can do it after it's in, but it's better if you do it now. There we go. All right, so now what I'm going to do is make a little pull for the top, and let me find some paper to do that with. So I have a little scrap of white. I'm just going to punch 2 of these little 3/4 inch scallop circles, just like so. This is thick cardstock I was using there. I'll punch these guys out, and these are going to be my little pull for the top because I think I'm going to stamp the word pull on it with my stamp set. So let's do this. Here's what I did again. Using this sheet, I'm going to lay this in like this. Also, you can stamp up here. Let me stamp up there first. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me stamp. I want to put Happy Father's Day on here also. Okay, so I'm going to stamp Happy Father's Day here toward the top. So when this gets pulled out, this will show at the top. And I just wanted to stamp this before I put my little pull on there so it didn't make my paper uneven. Okay, now this is a 3/4 inch scallop punch. I don't need this to be halfway sticking out. I'm going to add a little more glue to it than you would think. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to glue this down to, how do I say it, 1 scallop above half. Let me put it down, then I'll show you what I mean. So using my little cutting mat to keep myself straight, I'm going to glue this down. See, I did exactly what I didn't want to do. I'm going to glue it right to the Happy Father's Day there. Then I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I don't need a full half of this to be at the top. I'm going to glue it down as far as I can here before cutting off my Y. There we go. And kind of in the center. And then I'm going to turn this over, put some glue at the top and also at the bottom. Now here's the thing. You need to make sure you get this bottom glued down really well, because if you don't, it can lift up this little bottom part and get caught in your slider mechanism. So make sure you get that glued down really well. I'm going to turn this around and line everything up. Get that all where it needs to be. There we go. And I think I got a little ink on it, so I'm going to erase that with my sand eraser. This stamp set called Action has the word pull on it. So I am going to, it has a lot of words, but pull is one of them. I'm going to ink up the word pull. And then at the top here, I'm going to stamp as high as I can, pull. So that way Dad will know what to do there. Okay, now this guy can get glued to our card. So here's the trick. Because of the way this pulls, you cannot glue this entire section down, okay? What you're going to glue is this middle portion right here, all right? So I'm going to place some glue about like this. Just a good strip of it here. I need the rest to be free to flow, okay? And then this guy gets glued in upside down, and the only thing holding it in is that little piece right there. But I'm going to line it up centered and at the top of my piece here. Now look, this may happen to you. I feel like that's a little bit long right there. I'm going to lift that up, flatten this out, and I think I'm going to come back and trim a little off. What I don't want is for my page to hang off the top. See how I've got it lined up there? But because we're not perfect when we lay down our little strips, I've gotten a little bit crooked there. So I'm just going to trim some of that away so it's not stopping me too fast. I'm just going to use these scissors to just trim right here to make this lay a little bit better. It's a little crooked. And don't fret if you have to do this. You want it to lay smooth. You want it to lay flat. Cutting this little bit off is no big deal. You cannot be perfect with this. You are gluing paper, cutting paper. You cannot be perfect, okay? So now the little pull tab is going to stick out at the top of my tie, and this can now get glued down to our card base. All right, let me get this in here nice and even. This is my card base, and what I'm going to do is run my glue here, all the way down, all the way across that strip we did at the bottom, and all the way up the side. And that's what's going to stick it down. You can totally use sticky tape here. You don't need any glue at the top and none on your slider piece here. And then this gets glued onto our 5x7 with a little white border all the way around. All right, and glue those edges down really good before you pull anything. Don't pull yet. Now, if you wanted to, you could certainly like do another little strip here and make it look like a shirt. You could put a little pocket down here, whatever you wanted. I just wanted to show you how to make this mechanism. Okay, so everything is glued down, and I want to show you one little thing. Sometimes when you first glue this down, your tie might be tucked under here. If it is, just slide something under and loosen it on either side. Just make sure it's not tucked under. And then, this is the trick. Come right here to the edge of your tie and just flick it upwards like this. Just slightly so it angles up just a little bit on either of these edges. Just kind of almost like you're curling it, you know what I'm saying? Not really curling it, but just lifting it up so they get out of the way, all right? And then when you do, here's what you get. Look at that card. Isn't that cute? The little tie lifts up and Dad sees Happy Father's Day. I think that is adorable. Now, you could do so much with this. I wanted to teach you the slider portion. I wanted to teach you how to build all this. But can you imagine adding like a little button, what is that called? A button panel right here and maybe a little pocket over here. Or who knows what? You might even, who knows? You guys will go crazy. I know your cards will be even better. And then on the back, you have all this space for stamping and writing, whatever you want to do. But this, to me, is adorable, and I think Dad will think you're the coolest thing to make him a card where the tie lifts up and shows him the sentiment. Isn't that cute? I love it. I can play with this all day, just like this. All right, guys, if you make this card, and I hope that you do, I want to see it over on our customer gallery at MaymayMadeIt.com. Just head to MaymayMadeIt.com, check out the customer gallery, and upload your photos there. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.